Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're exploring the world of dog training. But we're going beyond sit and stay. We're talking about getting into your dog's head
Yeah.
with Brain Train for Dogs. And to help us unlock those canine minds, we're diving deep into From Chaos to Calm, a book filled with incredible stories about dogs overcoming some pretty tough behavioral issues. I don't know about you, but I always thought training was about teaching commands. You know, like stop barking or don't jump on guests. But this book suggests there's so much more to it.
It really challenges the way we think about traditional training. You hit the nail on the head. It's not just about stopping behavior, but about understanding why that behavior is happening in the first place. From Chaos to Calm is all about the Brain Training for Dogs method,
Yep.
which focuses on engaging a dog's natural intelligence to address those root causes.
That's fascinating. So instead of just suppressing the symptoms, we're actually trying to understand the dog's perspective and work with their instincts, not against them. The first story that really hooked me was about Max, a German shepherd who was incredibly anxious around other dogs. Walks were a nightmare for him and his owner, Sarah. I can only imagine how stressful that must have been.
It's a common problem, and unfortunately, many owners just end up isolating their dogs. But this method takes a completely different approach. Sarah didn't just try to control Max with commands. She actually learned to read his body language, to recognize those subtle signs of anxiety before it escalated.
So it's like learning to speak dog. Tell me more about that.
Absolutely. Think of it as understanding canine communication. They're constantly giving us signals, a slight tuck of the tail, a tense posture, even the direction of their gaze. These are all clues to their emotional state.
So Sarah became a dog whisperer. But how did she actually use that knowledge to help Max?
That's where positive reinforcement comes in. But it's more than just giving treats. It's about creating positive associations with things that used to trigger anxiety. In Max's case, that meant associating other dogs with good things.
So every time he saw another dog and stayed calm, he got praised or played a game or got a special treat.
Exactly. It's about shifting his perception
Yeah.
from fear to anticipation.
That's so clever. Did it actually work? Did Max eventually overcome his fear of other dogs?
There's this incredible moment in the book where Max and Sarah are at the park and another dog approaches. But instead of panicking, Max actually looks to Sarah for guidance.
Wow. Talk about a breakthrough moment.
It's a total game changer. It shows Max is starting to trust Sarah and his own ability to handle the situation.
That must have been such a relief for both of them.
Absolutely. And it gets even better. The book describes Max actually enjoying walks and even playing with other dogs at the park. It's proof that even deep-seated fears can be overcome with patience, consistency, and of course, positive reinforcement.
That's amazing. It gives me hope for all the anxious pups out there. Speaking of anxiety, the next story in From Chaos to Calm really resonated with me. It's about a rescue dog named Luna, who struggled with separation anxiety. I've known so many people who have dealt with this issue. It can be heartbreaking for both the dog and the owner.
Absolutely. And Luna's story is a perfect example of how misunderstanding a dog's behavior can make the problem even worse. Picture this. Luna's owner, Michael, would come home to destroyed furniture, and the neighbors were constantly complaining about her barking.
Oh no. Poor Michael. I bet he was feeling incredibly frustrated.
He was, and it's understandable. Many people in that situation might resort to punishment, thinking the dog is being deliberately destructive.
Right, like they're just trying to get back at their owner for leaving them alone.
Exactly. But From Chaos to Calm makes it clear that separation anxiety is not about bad behavior. It's a genuine fear response.
So punishing Luna wouldn't have solved the problem at all. It would just made her anxiety worse. So how did Brain Training for Dogs help Michael and Luna?
The method focuses on desensitization and counter-conditioning, basically. Michael gradually got Luna used to being alone. Start with very short periods, and slowly increasing the duration. He also made some changes to his departure routine to minimize the cues that triggered Luna's anxiety.
That makes so much sense. I've heard about that technique before. But was there anything else Michael did to help Luna?
He incorporated mental stimulation exercises, which is a core principle of brain training for dogs. Before leaving, Michael would engage Luna's mind with puzzle toys or hide-and-seek games with her treats.
So instead of just leaving her to stew in her anxiety, he gave her something productive to focus on. I bet she was too busy solving puzzles to even notice he was gone.
Exactly. It's all about redirecting that nervous energy into a positive outlet. And the results were incredible. Luna went from being a distressed, furniture-destroying dog to calmly spending hours alone, happily engaged with her toys.
That's amazing. It really highlights the importance of mental stimulation. We often prioritize physical exercise for our dogs, but what about their brains?
It's crucial. Many behavioral problems stem from boredom and a lack of mental engagement. Dogs are naturally curious and intelligent creatures, and they need outlets for their mental energy.
It's like we give them all this physical exercise, but then expect them to just sit around and do nothing
Mhm.
when we're not home. So brain training for dogs is about giving them a mental workout. Is that what you're saying?
That's a great way to put it. The method uses games, puzzles, and training exercises that progressively challenge the dog, much like we challenge ourselves with brain teasers or learning new skills.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about teaching tricks. It's about engaging their minds and helping them reach their full potential.
Precisely. And the beauty of it is that it's fun for both the dog and the owner. It's not about forcing obedience. It's about working together, building a bond through playful challenges.
You know those viral videos of dogs solving complex puzzles or performing incredible tricks? It's amazing what they can do when we tap into their intelligence.
Absolutely. And that's what From Chaos to Calm is all about, revealing the hidden potential within every dog. The third story in the book really showcases this, the idea of transforming reactivity into responsiveness.
Oh, yeah. Bailey's story. She was the border collie mix, whose reactivity made it almost impossible for her family to have visitors or even enjoy a peaceful walk in the park.
Bailey's story is a classic example of how people often misinterpret reactivity for aggression. She wasn't inherently aggressive, but any sudden sound or movement would trigger a frenzy of barking and nervous pacing.
That must have been so stressful for both Bailey and her owner, Emma. I imagine they were both feeling pretty trapped.
You're right. Many people would try to suppress Bailey's reactions with harsh commands, but that wouldn't address the underlying insecurity and lack of mental stimulation, which is often the root cause of reactivity, especially in intelligent breeds like border collies.
So instead of just trying to shut down her reactions, they focused on understanding why she was reacting that way in the first place. So how did brain training for dogs approach Bailey's reactivity?
It started with the basics, teaching Bailey impulse control and focus. Emma worked with her on simple obedience commands, gradually increasing the distractions and challenges. This built Bailey's confidence and gave her a sense of control over her impulses.
So it's like teaching her to think before she reacts.
Exactly. And then they moved on to a really interesting technique called Look Into My Eyes, which is a core module in the Brain Training for Dogs program.
I'm intrigued. What is that exactly?
It's a powerful exercise that teaches the dog to maintain eye contact with their owner, even in highly stimulating environments. By learning to focus on Emma, Bailey could filter out the distractions that were triggering her reactivity.
So it's like teaching her to tune out the noise and stay connected to her owner.
Yes, it's about building that focus and trust, which is essential for any dog, but especially for those struggling with reactivity. And the results were remarkable. Bailey went from being a prisoner in her own home to calmly greeting visitors and ignoring distractions on walks.
Wow. That's a complete transformation. It sounds like brain training for dogs goes beyond just teaching commands. It's about empowering dogs to make better choices.
Exactly. These stories demonstrate that even dogs with deep-seated behavioral issues can learn change and thrive when we tap into their natural intelligence and meet their mental and emotional needs.
It makes you wonder how much potential we miss out on when we approach training in a more traditional, obedience-focused way. I'm starting to think of it less like training and more like unlocking what's already there in our dogs.
That's a fantastic way to put it. And one thing that struck me about From Chaos to Calm is how much it emphasizes celebrating those small victories along the way. It's not just about the end goal. It's about acknowledging each step forward, no matter how tiny.
Oh, I totally agree. Like when Max looked to Sarah for guidance, instead of reacting to the other dog at the park, it's a huge win, even if he wasn't perfectly calm yet.
Absolutely. Those seemingly small moments are actually giant leaps in terms of progress. It's about recognizing those shifts in behavior and reinforcing them with positive feedback, whether it's praise a treat or just a happy voice.
You know, it reminds me of when I was trying to teach my dog a new trick. I was getting so frustrated because he just wasn't getting it. But then I broke the trick down into smaller steps, and suddenly he started making progress. And you know what? Celebrating those little wins made the whole process so much more enjoyable for both of us.
I love that you brought up your own experience. It highlights a key takeaway from the book. This training is a journey, not a destination. There will be setbacks and challenges, but it's about staying consistent, staying positive, and never giving up on your dog.
I think that's such an important message
Yeah.
for anyone listening who's feeling overwhelmed by their dog's behavioral issues. It's not about finding a quick fix. It's about building a relationship based on trust and understanding. And it might not always be easy, but it's incredibly rewarding.
It is. And speaking of rewards, from chaos to calm really challenges us to think about what truly motivates our dogs. It's not always about food or toys. Sometimes the biggest reward is simply our attention, our affection, and a genuine connection.
You know, that makes so much sense. My dog goes absolutely crazy for a belly rub, way more than he cares about treats. And I think sometimes in our quest to train our dogs, we forget about the simple joy of just connecting with them on their level.
Exactly. Brain training for dogs reminds us that the foundation of any successful training is a strong bond built on mutual respect and understanding.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you, for all the dog owners out there who are ready to ditch the old school commands and embrace a more brain-based approach, what's the most important thing to remember?
I'd say it's this. Never underestimate the power of understanding your dog's perspective. Their behavior, even the bad behavior, is always communicating something. It's our job to listen, to learn their language, and to respond in a way that meets their needs.
So it's about seeing the world through their eyes, understanding their motivations, and working with them, not against them.
Precisely. And from chaos to calm makes it clear that transformation is possible. These stories are proof that even dogs with deep-seated behavioral issues can change, learn, and thrive with the right guidance and support.
It's incredibly inspiring. So as we close out this episode, I'd love for all of you listening to consider this. What hidden potential might your dog have waiting to be unlocked? Maybe they're a puzzle-solving whiz, a secret agility champion, or maybe they just need the space and encouragement to truly be themselves.
Imagine a world where dogs and humans communicate more effectively, where we approach behavioral issues with understanding rather than punishment, and where every dog has the opportunity to live a happy, fulfilling life.
That's a beautiful vision, and I think brain training for dogs offers a powerful pathway to making that vision a reality. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep celebrating the amazing bond you share with your furry friend. So like we give them all this physical exercise, but then kind of expect them to just chill out when we're not around.
Yeah, it's like we're missing a piece of the puzzle. We focus on tiring them out physically, but their minds are still going a mile a minute.
And that's where brain training for dogs comes in.
Exactly. It's about giving them that mental workout they crave.
So it's more than just like giving them a Kong to chew on or something.
Right. It's about engaging their minds in a structured way, using games, puzzles, and exercises that challenge them mentally, just like we challenge ourselves with, crosswords or Sudoku.
Okay, so it's like brain teasers for dogs.
Exactly. And the best part is it's fun for both the dog and the owner.
I bet. It's like you're both learning and growing together.
It's not about forcing obedience or anything. It's about working together as a team, building that bond through these playful challenges.
You know, it's funny. I was just thinking about those videos you see online of dogs like figuring out these crazy puzzles or doing those super impressive tricks. It's amazing what they can do when we actually tap into their intelligence.
It really is. And that's exactly what From Chaos to Calm is all about. Unlocking that hidden potential that's inside every dog.
It's so inspiring.
And the third story in the book really drives this point home. It's about a dog named Bailey who was super reactive.
Oh yeah, Bailey. She was the border collie mix, right?
Sure.
The one who couldn't handle visitors or even go for walks.
That's her. Bailey's story is such a clear example of how people often mistake reactivity for aggression. She wasn't actually aggressive.
Right. She wasn't like trying to bite people or anything.
Exactly.
Right.
But any sudden noise or movement would set her off. Barking, pacing the whole 9 yards.
That must have been so tough on her family.
It was. They felt trapped in their own home.
I can only imagine. So how did brain training for dogs help Bailey?
Well, it starts with understanding that reactivity often stems from insecurity and a lack of mental stimulation, especially in smart breeds like border collies.
So it's not about punishing them for reacting.
No, not at all. It's about addressing those underlying needs.
So what did they do with Bailey?
They started with the basics, teaching her impulse control and focus, simple obedience commands, but gradually increasing the distractions. building her confidence step by step.
So she was learning to think before she reacted.
Exactly. And then they introduced this really cool technique called look into my eyes.
Oh, I've heard of that. Isn't that where the dog learns to maintain eye contact with their owner?
You got it. Even in really stimulating environments, it's all about teaching the dog to focus on their owner and filter out those distractions.
That's so smart. So instead of getting overwhelmed by everything going on around her, Bailey could just tune in and demo and stay calm.
That's the idea. And it worked wonders for Bailey. She went from being basically a prisoner in her own home to being able to greet visitors calmly and ignore distractions on walks.
That's a huge transformation.
It really is. And it just goes to show that even dogs with pretty severe behavioral issues can learn and change when we address those underlying needs.
You know what's really striking me about all these stories is that it's not just about training the dog. It's about understanding them on a much deeper level.
I completely agree. It's about seeing the world through their eyes and meeting them where they are.
It's almost like we're unlocking their potential instead of just trying to mold them into what we want them to be.
That's a perfect way to put it. And you know, one of the things I really appreciate about From Chaos to Calm is that it emphasizes celebrating those small wins along the way.
Oh yeah, those are so important.
It's not just about reaching the end goal, but about recognizing and rewarding every step in the right direction.
Like when Max looked to Sarah for guidance at the park.
Exactly. It might seem small, but those little moments are huge milestones.
It makes me think about when I was teaching my dog a new trick. I was getting so frustrated because he just wasn't getting it. But then I realized I was expecting too much too soon.
We've all been there.
So I broke it down into smaller steps, and suddenly he started making progress. And you know what? Celebrating those little wins made the whole experience so much more enjoyable for both of us.
I love that. It reminds us that training is a journey, not a race. There will be bumps along the way, but it's about staying positive, being patient, and never giving up on your dog.
And I think that's such an important message for anyone who's feeling discouraged about their dog's behavior. It's not about finding a quick fix. It's about building a stronger relationship based on trust and understanding.
Couldn't agree more. It's about that connection.
And speaking of connections,
Yeah.
From chaos to calm also makes a really interesting point about what truly motivates dogs.
Oh, yeah.
It's not always about treats or toys.
Sometimes the most powerful reward is simply our attention and affection.
That makes total sense. My dog would much rather cuddle up on the couch with me than get a treat any day.
It's about that genuine connection.
And sometimes I think we get so caught up in the training aspect
Yeah.
that we forget to just enjoy spending time with our dogs.
It's easy to do, but brain training for dogs reminds us that the foundation of any successful training is a strong bond built on love and understanding.
So before we wrap things up, I want to ask you something. For all the dog owners out there listening who are ready to ditch the old school commands and try this more brain-based approach, what's the most important thing to keep in mind?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is this. Never underestimate the power of understanding your dog's perspective. Their behavior, even the stuff we might consider bad, is always communicating something. So it's our job to listen, to learn their language, and to respond in a way that meets their needs.
It's like we're partners in this, not just master and servant.
Exactly. And From Chaos to Calm really shows us that transformation is possible. Even dogs with deeply ingrained behavioral issues can learn and change and thrive when we give them the right support.
That's so encouraging. It gives me hope for all the pups out there. So as we close out our deep dive today, I want to leave you with this question. What hidden potential might your dog have? Maybe they're a puzzle-solving genius just waiting to be discovered. Or maybe they just need a little extra love and understanding to truly blossom.
Imagine a world where dogs and humans communicate seamlessly, where we approach behavior challenges with compassion and understanding, and where every dog has the chance to live their best life.
That's a beautiful vision. And I think brain training for dogs offers a roadmap to help us get there. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep celebrating the amazing bond you share with your furry friend.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, are we doing our dogs a disservice by sticking to those old school methods when they're capable of so much more?
It's like we're only scratching the surface of their potential. Exactly. You know, one thing that really stood out to me in From Chaos to Calm was the emphasis on celebrating those small victories.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about the end goal. It's about recognizing and rewarding every step in the right direction.
Like when Max finally looked to Sarah for guidance, instead of freaking out, That was such a powerful moment.
It was, and it's those seemingly small wins that actually lay the foundation for lasting change.
It's like when I was trying to teach my dog to fetch. I was getting so frustrated because he just wasn't getting it.
We've all been there.
But then I broke it down into tiny steps. Like just rewarding him for looking at the toy, then for touching it, and eventually for picking it up.
Smart.
And you know what? Celebrating those little victories made the whole process so much more fun for both of us.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from frustration to encouragement.
And I think that's so important for dog owners to remember, especially when they're dealing with behavioral challenges.
It's a journey, not a sprint.
Exactly. And sometimes it's messy and it's frustrating, but it's about sticking with it, being patient and understanding, and celebrating those little wins along the way.
You know, that reminds me of another key point from chaos to calm. It's about recognizing what truly motivates your dog. It's not always about treats or toys.
Oh yeah, for sure. My dog goes bonkers for a good ear scratch. Way more than he cares about any treat.
It's about that connection, that bond between you and your dog.
And sometimes I think we get so caught up in the training aspect that we forget to just enjoy being with our dogs.
Absolutely. Brain training for dogs really reminds us that a strong bond built on love and mutual respect is the foundation for any successful training.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you one last question for all the dog owners out there listening who are ready to embrace this more brain-based approach. What's the most important thing to remember?
That's a tough one. But I think it all boils down to this. Never underestimate the power of seeing the world from your dog's perspective. Their behavior, even the stuff we might not like, is always communicating something. It's our job to try to understand what they're trying to tell us.
It's like learning a whole new language.
Exactly. And from chaos to calm really shows us that when we make that effort to understand our dogs, amazing things can happen.
It's incredibly inspiring. It makes me so excited for the future of dog training. So as we close out today's episode, I want to leave you with this thought. What incredible things is your dog capable of? What hidden talents are just waiting to be unlocked? Take the time to really connect with your furry friend, explore their potential, and celebrate every step of the journey together.
It's an adventure worth taking.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep those tails wagging and those minds working.